Hey there, risers and thrivers. Last episode, we did something a little different, but this week, we're back to our regularly scheduled programming with a really exciting and insightful episode. To those of you that are tuning in for the first time, welcome. My name is Janine Vanessa Heinrich, and I am the creator and host of this podcast, On the Up and Up, which was created to encourage critical conversations, amplify the untold stories and achievements of the underrepresented and underestimated, and inspire visionaries to take the next steps to pursue their dreams. And for those of you who are tuning in as a repeat listener, thank you so much for your continued support. If you could do me a really quick favor, I'd highly appreciate it if you could quickly follow, or subscribe this podcast on your favorite streaming platforms if you're not already. And also, please do share it with others that you think would also enjoy it. Now, while you're doing that, let me tell you about this episode's guest. Joining me this week is Moroccan-born two-time founder turned investor, Zachariah Jahaitha. And y'all, you're in for a good one. I don't want to give any spoilers, but here's a bit of what you can expect to hear in this episode. First, Zach's going to walk us through his early days, taking his first flight and starting his life abroad. Then we're going to transition to his life in Germany, where he battled the German immigration authorities, also known as the Ausländerbehörde, and his experience facing deportation. Also, we're going to talk about the challenges he faced being taken seriously as a founder, especially when building a business in the African market. And lastly, he's going to share his advice for early stage founders based off of his experiences and learnings, as well as his newfound perspective as an investor. So y'all, buckle up because you're in for a good one this episode. But before I spoil anything, let me hand the mic over. So Zach, what's your story?
It's a long but almost surreal story because so I grew up in Morocco in a small city called Safi, and just moving from that small city to a bigger city like Marrakesh or Rabat was like traveling to Europe for me. It was like such a huge thing. And so I didn't really travel a lot as a kid. Not only me, but the majority of the people in my city. It's pretty industrial city, and the average salaries are really super low. So you cannot really afford to do a lot of things with that. But till the age of 18, I would say the biggest dream I had was to fly once in my life before dying. That's the biggest dream. Like people are dreaming about Mars, and
You're like, I would just like to try.
Me, I'm like,
get on an airplane.
I see all these planes, and we don't have an airport in my city, so we see them really super far. And then I'm like, wow, I would love to be on that plane once in my life. It doesn't matter if I'm like 80 or 90 or 60. But at least once in my life, just at least one way, it doesn't have to be the other way. And I don't care where, but and so that was the biggest dream I had. And then
interesting. When did that dream become a reality for you? When was the first time you got on the plane?
Around when I was 19 years old. So when I was 19 years old, first when I was 17, I finished high school in my city. Then I moved to Marrakesh, and then I started meeting people from the city of Marrakesh that already traveled abroad, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'm actually not, maybe this dream is really achievable, we are in the same class and stuff, so maybe I think I can reach that. But still, I go back to my family, I'm like, hey, I really want to travel somewhere, maybe to France, maybe Canada, I don't know, and it was still very far from me. But then when I was 19 years old, I applied for some universities in France, and then I got invited to pass the entrance exam, and that was the first time I flew in my life. And I remember when.
How did that feel? Because I'm scared of airplanes. It's a lot.
The first city I visited was Toulouse in France. This is where I did the entrance exam. And I remember when I arrived to the airport, I don't know, I think I was just expecting too much. I literally expected flying cars. And then it's crazy. I was like, because in Morocco we have like we have these brands like Renault, Peugeot, I don't know, Audi and stuff. But then I really expected that
Something else,
they have like flying taxis, and they have like something extraordinary, And then I arrived like already from the airport, and I look and I'm like, whoa, like they just have normal cars here, So that was the very first impression, and I was like kind of really disappointed because I'm like,
I could have seen this at home.
Yeah, I expected literally they are like 100 years more advanced than us, and that wasn't so. It was a little bit like under like my below, a lot below my expectations. So that was the first time in France, and then I went back. I got accepted to enter this university, which was in Bordeaux. And then I flew the second time to Bordeaux. So I stayed in France all in all like 3 years. And I was already like super surprised when I was in Bordeaux that in my mind, I'm traveling to a foreign country, but there were so many Moroccans. And I literally, I could eat Moroccan all the time, speak Moroccan all the time. I was sitting in a class and I hear like people talking Moroccan outside. I'm like, damn, this feels just like Morocco,
Oh, was that an exciting thing for you to make it easier to adjust, or were you hoping to have a bit more of a complete like culture shock experience?
I was expecting a cultural shock. I mean, I had like few cultural shocks, but let's say I did not expect to see and meet so many Moroccans. Like, it was just insane, like restaurants serving couscous, Moroccan mint tea, and I was literally speaking the whole day just Moroccan. And let's say I expected that I would be in a country where probably I'm gonna meet like completely foreign people. And I would say it was a little bit funny to just meet tons of Moroccans there.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, well, inevitably you ended up coming to Germany. How was that? Was that experience a little bit more of diverse
100%.
culturally?
100%. So the way how I moved to Germany, so after staying in France for like 3 years, I got my master's there. I started looking at, okay, which countries shall I really move to? I hated this idea of becoming just another Moroccan who moves from Morocco to France, and then you start working there as whatever engineer, and then you buy a house or 2 houses in Morocco, and then every like summer vacation you go back, and then like I could kind of see the whole future, and I was like, no, if my whole life is just like that, it's so boring. I need to do something different, and I need to like get out of my comfort zone and just position myself in a path where I might become something kind of different,
And where do you think that drive to be different comes from? Where is that motivation coming from? Because I think for a lot of people that is enough, right? But you're asking for more.
Yeah. I think from my very early childhood, especially my mom was all the time telling me I'm so special, I can become something super special, and I believed it naively, and then I think back then I still always believed that I'm kind of born to be something special and to do something bigger. And when I was a kid, I read a lot of books, biographies of amazing people, all the scientists and the world leaders. And I always aspired to become kind of like them, So I think I always wanted to at least position myself in a path to become something special. Yeah, and it's very funny how I choose Germany. So I looked at France and I'm like, okay, what are the countries that have better GDP than France? And then
that was such an analytical way to look at it. I'm like,
really,
where does it have a better GDP?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, there is Germany, Japan, the US. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna go to Germany 2 years, Japan 2 years, the US 2 years. Then I will learn why these countries are better than France, you know? Yeah. And then
Interesting.
I'm gonna like decide after the 6 years if I want to go back to Morocco and then make Morocco a better country, or if I would like to stay a little bit longer and learn basically in these countries. And I was applying to Japan, to the US, but then I got the answer to join SAP in Germany, like as a first country, and then I moved here, you know. And I had like no clue about German. I still don't really.
I think we're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of jump to your work experience because you worked then, like you said, at SAP for around 5 years or so.
Yeah, almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years, yeah. And so, how did you go from a relative? I would say that's probably a very comfortable position to be in, to be honest, to choosing. Okay, now I'm going to start a company.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the catalyst for you making that choice?
Again, I started being a bit afraid that I'm too comfortable, you know.
Okay.
So I started having, was a great salary, a lot of awesome benefits, and then and then at some point I was like, hey, I'm a bit too comfortable here. So I joined the office of the CTO also at some points, and I always wanted to at least try to build something and prove to myself that I can do it, you know. So being in Berlin also had a huge impact on my way of thinking, because I was after work going to all these meetups, and then I could, you just see all these entrepreneurs pitching how they are changing the world, and you're like, wow, I have huge respect for these people, you know. But then at some point you're like, okay, why am I afraid? You know, why can't I just also do the same, you know? So it influenced me a little bit, and I started really just kind of challenging myself. Why not me? Why should I be on the kind of the audience, spectator like side, where I'm just clapping when someone is really on stage? Why it's not me who is really like pushing things a bit forwards and executing ideas that I always believed in?
And when you looked at yourself, how did you come to the conclusion, like, why not me? What made you realize, like, actually, I could be one of those people on the stage doing that? Because I think a lot of us have this fear of leaving where we're at, where we're comfortable, to be put into this very, very uncomfortable zone. Yeah. So what were those factors that made you more confident to do that?
I think at the very beginning, when I just joined SAP, I was like, just as a foreigner, scared from pretty much everything. First, scared from being kicked out of Germany.
I get that,
also, like, financial security. You're like, whoa, if I quit, like, how am I gonna survive? And then you have like a lot of people dependent on you. You're sending your money to your family, and then you're like, whoa, how am I gonna handle that? And then you're like, can I really do this thing? Do I have enough expertise and stuff to do that? But then at SAP, I got promoted 3-4 times, like super fast. And then I was joining the office of the CTO, and I was like, I think even if I quit, it won't be super hard to really get another job. And I started also gaining a little bit more confidence, because I got promoted, and I'm like now working on a super high level, like strategic level, where I'm, it's a company that has like 100,000 employees. And then you feel like, wow, you have, you are like in the close to the people who are managing all this thing. So you feel a little bit like more confident, and I'm like, wow, I can do it. I'm like one of the leaders now, or like close to the leaders in the world. So what I really lacked was just that confidence. And after 5+ years at SAP, I gained that confidence. And then also, I would say I had a little bit of savings in my bank accounts. So I started evaluating all the scenarios. I'm like, okay, there is no real worst case here, Well, there was.
I was going to ask you, because you brought up like one of the fears was, okay, your status in Germany, you might not be able to stay. And that fear became a reality. for you. So do you want to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah,
how that happened?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I, before quitting, I what I did, I was like, okay, let me just plan things, and I had like a to-dos with like things and kind of the main things I need to check before I quit, like, okay, financial check, this check, and the other aspect is like, okay, the legal aspect of basically staying here in Germany. And I did not have a permanent residency here. It's a long story why I didn't have a permanent residency. And I wanted to have just a permanent residency. So I went to them, to the Ausländerbehörde, and then I said, okay, look, I would like to quit my job. I'm like now working. This is my salary, awesome salary. I'm working for the office of the CTO. Look, I'm really top talent in Germany, and I had a blue card, and I said, okay, I would like to quit the job. I think I went to them in a December or a January, and I was gonna quit my job in like February, and then to basically leave the job around like May that year. And I gave them all these deadlines. I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit, and this is the last day. And then they said, oh, it's fine. Like you will get the permanent residency in no time because you are like here 5 years, and you have like a great salary, everything. Like you will get it in no time. Yeah. So then I applied, and then I followed the plan. So I was like, okay, this is like no big deal.
What's interesting to me is that you gave them your deadlines and timeline. I didn't even know that was possible.
No, I gave them. I went, okay. I had an appointment. I went, I explained everything. And I said, what do you advise actually? And then they said, okay, just apply for the permanent residency. You will get it, no problem. So then I applied. And then exactly after that deadline, I think when I told them, okay, I'm going to quit exactly on that day, it was like, I don't know, 1st of February. So 1st of February, I tell SAP, okay, was a great time. Now I'm leaving to change the world. And then like a week or 2 weeks after, the Ausländerbehörde writes me again, and they're like, okay, can you provide us again a new document that like certifies that you are working unlimited?
Oh no.
But then I said, but and look, I told these things to one person, but then I got contacted by another person, but I already gave them everything before. Like they shouldn't kind of be asking me again and again. But because they had the information, they knew I will actually quit my job. And I was like, hey, can you just ask your colleague? I was like, there is just a misunderstanding here. I said, can you ask your colleague, this person? Because I already explained the whole story to him and everything. But right now I cannot give you unlimited. So I have now the only certificate I can get from, and they said it has to be new, not like an old one, So I said the only thing I can give you like as a new employment certificate, it will have this limited till basically end of May. And then, so then I send it, I think via email. I didn't hear back from them. Then around May, I'm like waiting. I forgot actually if I communicated again with them, but then after they asked me, I think for again giving them an employment contract, and I'm like, now I already left SAP, like I cannot give you anything, and now I am, I'm basically trying to build my startup, and then they're like, no, you need to give us like an employment contract, and I was like. And it was a completely another third person,
Of course.
So I was dealing with a completely other person.
3 times telling the same story again.
And then I was like, hey, can you ask your colleague or the other one? Because I already explained these things, all these things again. And then after like some time, after quitting my job in May, I think I received around like July, I received a letter directly to my apartment. Was the times when I was working like from 7 till midnight every day.
And like the last thing you need is another piece of stress.
And I was like so busy, like extreme. And I come home on a Wednesday or a Tuesday at midnight. I open the letterbox and then I read, and it had like really like a small sentence, and I read it, then I translate it, and then it just says, okay, we ask you to leave Germany as soon as possible.
Hey y'all, just a quick break to ask, What do y'all think so far? Honestly, I was so stressed listening to him recount his experience facing deportation, which is actually ironic because we recorded this episode in Germany. So obviously everything turned out all right, right? Well, keep listening and you'll find out. However, I have a question for all of you. Have you ever been in a similar situation? Personally, my childhood was scarred by the US immigration authorities. And yeah, I'm still, I think, recovering from that experience. So feel free to share what you think about the episode so far, and if you're comfortable, your experience in the comment section or by leaving a review. Now, back to the episode.
And I freaked out.
I was gonna say, I think I would have been crying.
Yeah. No, I freaked out.
Yeah.
I really freaked out. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I didn't know if it means that's like the first thing I was like, okay, the time you read it, then it's kind of valid, and now I'm illegal. Does it mean that, I don't know, at 3 a.m. or 8 a.m. there will be police coming and deporting me? Does it mean, like, I don't know, if I'm going now to a bank, you give them a document and then they go to another room and then call the police to deport you? Like, I had all these scenarios in mind and I started really freaking out. Like, what does that exactly mean, And I was like, wait, so now if they deport me, I have my apartment here, I have my business, now this and this, how would it work? Now I will be in Morocco. Whoa, wait, it's so hard again to apply for a new job. And I, like, all these scenarios were playing in my mind. Then I took a picture of it. I sent it to a German friend of mine. And then, of course, Germans, they love, like, these things, they make them sound even a lot worse than actually they are. So I remember she's really an amazing friend. Yeah. But I sent her like around 1 a.m. I'm sending her this letter. And then she's like, you are in deep trouble. She's like, I have never read something like this, but this is extremely serious. And I don't know what it means exactly, but you are in really, really, really deep trouble. And I don't know, and I cannot ask anyone. And I couldn't even call like any lawyer, nothing. So I freaked out even more. And the day after, it was like a Wednesday, I just start in the morning and I'm like trying to call all lawyers, and I eventually had an appointment on that day with a lawyer who also made it sound so complicated. He was like, okay, look, that's actually, first you are stupid because you told them these things. So I explained the whole thing. Okay. And I was like, oh, damn, it's too late now to realize
so
I was stupid.
So honesty is not the best policy.
Yeah. And then he was like, okay, so it's going to take, like, now I'm going to write a letter. You might, so the whole process will take like 6 months at least, could take even more.
So what does that mean for you though? Do you stay here for 6 months?
And then he said I might need actually to go back to Morocco, and then while I'm there, then he's taking care of it, and then he will we will contact the embassy, like a crazy process. And I was like, how much is that? It's like 10K, 15K. And then
the whole savings
he's like, yeah, because you already got now the letter. I mean, if you contacted me before that letter, we could have done something, but now, we cannot reverse this decision and stuff. And I was like, damn, this is really started to sound like super crazy. Yeah. So then I took a little bit of time to reflect, and I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just assume the worst case scenario is happening and I'm really kicked out. I believe this is unfair, and this situation should not happen to anyone, especially because I was really honest. So what I did, I just put all the things that happened and all my thoughts in a blog on LinkedIn.
Oh, shoot.
And then I just wrote, okay, I was, because when I quit my job, I said, okay, I believe and I have big dream and stuff. So I really wrote exactly why I quit SAP and that I believe that I'm going to change the world. So I had a post like that. And of course, when you quit a job to start a company, you have like hundreds of likes. Like everyone's like, wow, amazing. And then I made another post that said, I think it started something like, okay, for a while, I thought I can also dream, but as a foreigner in Germany, but I realized very soon I cannot kind of dream, And I explained everything. And then it started going so viral, Like people were tagging other people. And because here in Germany, like, they want to promote the idea that that Germany, attracts talents, and they don't want actually to to have a bad kind of reputation, especially among like these top talents. Very fast, so I started kind of receiving calls from, from IHK, from others, and they were like, okay, what's even from some political parties, and they're like, okay, what happened exactly? All the time I explain what happened, and then they're like, okay, look, just relax and chill,
Oh, that was nice. That's like the first time someone wasn't like, you're in trouble.
And then 2 days after, I received an email from that person who sent me the letter saying, okay, come and pick the
residence permit.
Yeah, the residence permit. I didn't get like a permanent one, but I got like 2 years or something, and
Congrats.
I was like, okay, yeah. And then after that, well, right now I'm German, so
okay.
Hey. From being kicked out of Germany to actually really being German, but like it's really very hard for foreigners to start a company, especially foreigners from developing countries. Yes. It's so tough.
It is. And
so tough.
You're not the first person who's told me one of these scenarios. When I was doing my research, I was talking to a lot of women entrepreneurs with migrant backgrounds. And I remember one, she was leaving her company or to start working on hers. And this whole visa process of how to leave that to get another visa so she could start her company was probably one of the most tasking things. And she said it took months because it was constantly something. It was like either your company had to have funding, then you had to be hired through your company to get a visa, but their company didn't have funding. So, but then she needed to be in it. And it was like this constant loop of either way, no matter how it was intertwined, it was a problem for her.
Yeah. So really, the problem is that you quit your job as a top talent coming from Morocco or India or Cameroon, and then for the Ausländerbehörde, they just need to see that you are employed and you have a salary, and then you tell them, no, look, I'm a top talent, like I'm the top AI whatever developer in the world, and I'm here in Germany, and I believe that I can do something awesome, and I have savings in my bank accounts, and then basically what they want you to do is that you create a legal company, you put all your savings in that company, and then you pay yourself a salary from that company, and basically splitting all your savings to half with the government. So this is like scenario 1. The scenario 2 is that you need and have to get funding, and you need to get basically, because it will be really hard to get public funding. So getting basically private money, and this is like kind of an impossible scenario. Like there are a lot of people, I mean, to get that private funding, it can take like 2-3 years, to just get it, especially at the very beginning. Or maybe you actually don't want that,
you don't want to be that kind of a founder.
You want to bootstrap the whole thing, and so this is like really a blocking issue, and I'm not aware of any solution how to kind of solve it today, you know?
And I mean, you can look over the borders, right? Other countries have solutions for this, right? So there are examples that Germany could be emulating to make this easier. And I honestly, it concerns me because I think, okay, long term, the country has an issue with brain drain. Yeah. Even German founders are leaving Germany to go build companies abroad because they have better terms. And so it's these things around building a company here that is making it unattractive, but there are top talents.
Yeah.
We're not only here just to pay your taxes. We can also be building the future, innovating, helping establish Germany as like a country of innovation. So I find it's not really an excuse for them to say they don't know what to do, or it just is. Because there's examples of others.
I think right now in UK, if you are a top talent, you can just have a visa, I think, for a year, and then just basically hang out, figure out what to do. And I think this is really extremely fair. If you are a top talent, you will figure out, like, you have your savings, or you will jump on some small consultancies. You can do, I don't know, if you're a developer or AI developer, you can generate money easily. And I remember when I went to the Ausländerbehörde, I was building an augmented reality company, and I was explaining to them, I'm an augmented reality developer. And they had no damn clue what I was doing. And I was like, I'm just wasting my time here. They don't get, And I was so excited. I'm like, really, like, can't you see? Like, this is really magic. And I had the headsets with me. And I was
cool.
like,
So you're even showing them.
I showed them. I was like, hey, look, this is a demo. Like, this is what we build. And they were like, no, of course, there is a process. They need to talk to experts to really understand what you are doing. But there should be 100%, as you said, a better process.
And I actually want to, I think this transition to the Auslandbehörde is exactly where I was going to go next, because you on one hand had your legal challenges, and then on the other hand you also had the challenges of being taken seriously as a founder, especially your first company and your second company. Do you want to unpack that as well a bit?
I think more in the first company. So I'm building a deep tech company in augmented reality, and we were not doing augmented reality on mobile. We were doing augmented reality on headsets, like apps. This is basically recently Apple released their Vision Pro headset, and we were building apps for that on Magic Leap 6 years ago. And so we're really very, very early, doing a lot of amazing things in augmented reality. And then I show up as a Moroccan, trying to talk to some customers, and then saying, we were selling to art galleries, we were selling also to brands and stuff. And then I present to them the product, but then, of course, it was all the time people wouldn't even think that I am a developer in that company, not even the CEO. So I was the CEO, but they wouldn't, it's not even...
think you're a developer. So
they wouldn't even think that I'm a developer. When I was explaining to them, they were just thinking I'm hired to whatever, explain, and then oh, that's really...
Like a sales guy or something?
Yeah, they're like, oh, so the company, how do we get in touch with the company and stuff? I'm like, I am the company, And they're like, huh? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, no, but do you work for them and stuff? And I'm like, no, I mean, I'm the CEO. And then I give my card and stuff, and then people are like, whoa. And I remember really once we were, me and my co-founder in an art exhibition, and we were explaining what we are doing, and the person, when she realized actually we're not actually from here, and then we said we're Moroccans and stuff, there was just this she turned very quiet, and she couldn't really believe it, and then she just turned,
That's it, she just walked away.
Yeah, she just walked away, and I didn't know, was it she didn't believe that we cannot do these things, or we are bullshitting her. I didn't really get it, what happened, that person really turned and then just went. But then with the time, I learned how to position myself and then pitch, better.
And how did you, what were some of the tricks or the tools that you had to position yourself better and stronger, and already from the back get that respect and
super fast? So I know kind of references. So the fact that it works, for example, for SAP, and everyone knows SAP,
first thing you would say.
I would say it super fast, I worked for SAP, Office of the CTO and stuff, and then it depends on people, it really depends on the people. But I started developing these kind of this super convincing pitches where I'm like, okay, if I say, for example, SAP to this person will be convinced. If I say, I don't know, this part, if I talk, okay, you're talking to a technical person, it's if you mention something, whatever, technical, then you very fast, they will take you super, super serious, So I just started developing these things, and I mentioned them super fast. And then people, suddenly they take you super serious, or mentioning so early on, hey, I'm the CEO of this company,
so it's basically the opposite of being humble from the very beginning.
No.
But from the very beginning, putting your credentials, saying, hey, this is who I am. This is why you're going to talk to me.
Yeah.
Okay, wild. Yeah. And then, you went on to build Wanda after that as well. But that was also a very different experience, right? Because at that point, I think the credentials were respected, right? But then it became a question of the market that you were building the company.
Yeah. I think, then
Would you mind also giving background to both of them, what exactly the augmented reality company was doing, and also what exactly Wanda was doing?
Augmented reality was doing pretty much everything. So we built tons of applications. We started as we wanted to be an augmented reality art platform. This is like before all this NFT and stuff. So we had really that vision.
So early, that's wild.
It's like we are visionaries, but timing wasn't really the best. But we could see that there are a lot of artists that are developing digital art, but there is no platform to host that digital art. And then we said, okay, what could be the best platform to host that digital art? And we said, okay, augmented reality, because we believed less in virtual reality. And then we said, the world doesn't want to be kind of in a completely virtual space, but we believed in a world where you have like the virtual and the reality together. And so we started building the tools for basically curating art exhibitions, like digital art exhibitions, hosting these digital arts. And this is how we started. But first we had no clue about the art market. We were like all techies, and then we started learning about the art market and how hard it is to kind of generate money in the art market. Like we tried to sell to galleries, but galleries are so used to getting things for free, and they don't want to really
us.
They're like, we give you marketing, you will become super famous. You don't know us. They're like, no, we need money, to pay our salaries and rent and stuff. Artists usually, they don't really pay. Plus, also it's very hard to really scale with artists. Because each one wants something so unique that no other artist is kind of doing. And then museums, like the sales cycle was like years, like they plan the budget for next year already now, and they already know what they will do. And basically you are in this crazy long cycle, but it's not really worth it. And what we started thinking after building a few applications there, we were like, no, we have to really pivot. So we pivoted we used the same technology that we developed at the very beginning to show art, but we used it to show other products. And this is how we generated money, but we struggled to scale it, to build something scalable there. And then I took a little bit of time to reflect on what I want to do. And I tried like few like venture builders and other entrepreneurship program. I did Antler. I did also Beam here for logistics. And then I started like more and more liking logistics. And since I always wanted to do something for Africa, and I still always want to do something there, I was like, okay, what would be the best way to kind of develop Africa? And I was like, okay, export and helping like small producers the same way kind of China developed, like helping small producers grow and connect with the international market. So this is how the idea of Wanda started. Started working on it at the very beginning alone. Then few people joined on board, and we launched the company. And
then you mentioned there were some challenges around that though, with fundraising, especially in conveying the.
It's like I always like to do something that is crazy challenging. I think like I could have
you
built
need a puzzle.
Like as a second company, I think I could have built maybe another deep tech AR company, and would have kind of worked, because at that time like all the NFTs, AR and stuff, they were really like booming. You could really receive investment a little bit easy there, and or build something around ERP systems, since I worked for SAP for a very long time. But then I'm like, Africa. And look, whenever there was like a pitch competition, they would put us last, really. It's like for diversity and stuff.
No.
It's like okay, and we give also space to Africa, but I have to fight like crazy just to be there.
That's such a
and
shame.
And then literally the moment I'm like, and we will do something around Africa here, it's like people are like, okay, next,
They're like, we don't want to deal with a charity project. Go do that elsewhere. Yeah.
Like no one really believes there is even a business possible.
Which I don't understand. Why do people sleep on Africa?
Well, I
like
understand.
This?
I to be honest, I do understand, because here, especially in Germany, a lot of investors, they have literally no clue about what's going on in Africa. There is so first,
but that's a choice.
I tell you, but the thing is like, in Africa, usually there is a huge, that's true. There is a huge lack of data around like everything, around like, so you cannot really quantify the risk and the opportunity a little bit, you to know if a certain investments make sense or not. It's a very groundwork that you have to do in Africa. You really have to be there in the countries, in Nigeria, in Morocco, and then you have to kind of collect the data yourself by interviewing your customers and stuff. Other countries, so France, for example, due to the colonization, so they have been on the ground, especially in Western Northern Africa, and they know a lot more these markets, and they know where to invest, and they do invest, and they have enough kind of network and companies already on the ground. So French companies, they do invest. Americans, they invest a lot, but just because they just look at the GDP is kind of growing. They don't understand what's really happening, or they have also they have seen how China has kind of developed, and
they're more inclined to take the risk.
They take a lot of risk, and then they would just throw a lot of money. But German investors, they're like, okay, like where do we even start? And from my experience I've pitched to a lot of them, really like Africa, this is the opportunities, this is that. And a lot of them, they're like, you will find always in a German VC maybe a person who has been to Tanzania or Namibia or South Africa and then is like, I feel there is something and I'm trying to push this topic internally, but we really don't have any agenda. But sometimes they will talk to you and make you feel like, oh, they were really interested and there is hope, But the reality is like it's not even part of their thesis, And they are like kind of, it's just like a one person who has been to South Africa, recently, and then
spending their winters in Berlin.
and then is kind of convinced that there is something there, and it's like the initiative of that associate or like investment manager. But on the partner level or the LP level,
the key decision makers.
It's still really not there yet. So you can imagine me 2-3 years ago going on stage and then pitching. Oh, it was like really tough, like I even met one investor. He's like, you are really really too smart. Why would you do that? Do something. I don't know. Like do some like there are a lot of deep tech problems, like focus on solving like, I don't know, deep tech SaaS,
But these are also big problems.
And then I was like, I'm smart, and thanks for saying it, and I want to use all my brain power on this, and it's because, as you say, I'm like smart. I see an opportunity here, and of course, like now after 2 years, I also understand the difficulty, but I always still believe there is like tons of opportunities in Africa.
Hey there, it's me again. In this last portion of the episode, Zak's going to provide us with insights into the early mistakes he made building his first startups, and also shed light from an investor's perspective on one of the biggest pitfalls that founders make in the early days. Now, while you're listening to that, it would mean the world to me if you would like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're currently listening to this episode. Also, please do share this episode with others that you know would enjoy it and benefit from Zak's insights. With that being said, back to the episode. But I also want to kind of bring it back to you again, because you stopped with Wanda, and now that you moved on to join the dark side, you're now an investor. And I wanted to kind of explore that with you now, because when you look back at the two companies you built, would you say that there were any rookie mistakes that you made where now you're like, especially looking at it from an investor side, you're like, I will never do that again?
A lot. Like I would say in the first startup, I did not know so much about building a company, and I put a lot of my energy at the very beginning to just learn about marketing, sales, whatever. And at some point, you are really tired and you cannot really, keep executing. But I would say one thing that I took from that company is, like to understand the energy, understand the ups and downs. And when you are really super up, to understand that it's not lasting forever, so you make really the most out of it. And there are like things that really bring the energy down, like pivoting, when you change. This is something that I always, like on paper, is like, okay, we try the first hypothesis, we jump to the next hypothesis, and then you continue like that. When you hire a team and then especially when you hire a team, but even without hiring a team, when you're working so deep and then you're like, okay, we believe the future, we will have an amazing art platform and stuff. And then a few weeks after, it took us like a few months, but then you're like, okay, no, I'm gonna change the world of industrial design. And then after that, you're like, no, I'm not changing industrial design, but I'm like building like a social network in augmented reality and stuff. Like just these pivots, it's, and when you when you keep changing like the vision of the
because
company.
People buy into the vision, right?
Yeah. It's really, it takes a lot of energy. There is a huge cost of change. Apart from, actually, it does cost in terms of money, because you need to rebuild probably the tech again, or like, adapt to the tech that you already have. You need to rework the branding. So there is the financial cost, but there is a huge energy cost. And then if you have a team, at some point they're really lost. And I didn't realize that at the beginning. So for me, it's like, no, we tried the first one, then the second one, then the third one. And then when there was a time when we were like just pivoting, and I think people started even, let's say, giving up and losing hope that we actually know what we are doing. And that's, they could not really buy into the vision and mission.
But that's really
anymore.
Interesting, because I mean, we always hear pivoting is important. You've got to pivot whenever possible. But these pivots also, to me, from what you're saying, sound like huge business model shifts altogether, or like, because
you can like, there is a difference between small iterations and real pivot. And same thing, I mean, I did Y Combinator startup school, and they were like, oh, pivots, it's really very dangerous advice. It's really super dangerous advice. And I would rather, like, you do your homework at the very beginning and you stick with that vision, and you are like so stubborn to really just get anything out of whatever vision you started your business for, rather than keeping pivot. And you can iterate a little bit, small iterations.
Having
if you are
a very clear vision.
Yeah, if you are doing a B2B marketplace and you are selling certain products, I don't know, you are selling home decor, you could say, okay, no, maybe I do textile instead of, and yeah, that's, I would say, small pivot iteration. But then shifting from a B2B wholesale marketplace to, I don't know, a complete SaaS company, or even if it's, you're not losing 100% of the tech that you have developed because you have like a CRM under that marketplace and stuff. It's a complete different game. And especially when you already have employees and the team, it's, energy is like something you really have to keep in mind.
It's true. People don't like change. I've actually seen that also in various work environments. Whenever the projects or something change drastically, it killed a bit of the motivation for the team every time. And the time it takes to rebuild that motivation, get everyone on track with the vision, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's really tasking, actually.
But I would say, like, wow, it's like so many learnings. Also, like, there is a lot of content out there from a lot of super smart people. But what you should always have in mind is at which stage and to whom are they giving exactly advice, And if you hear like, I don't know, like Steve Jobs saying, hire smart people and let them whatever do they will figure out and stuff.
Maybe
it's
not early stage.
Yeah, not early stage. Early stage, you really don't do that. I think we did that mistake where at some point we were just looking for smart people. We hire smart people. We're like, okay, we don't know exactly still. We don't have a product market fit. We don't have a lot of answers. So let's just hire super smart people, and they will also help us figure that out. But this is really super kind of dangerous, to do. I mean, you never take an advice. It's like, it's based on your situation, your startup scale. But, like, always take an advice from someone who's like only one step ahead of you, not like 10 steps ahead of you. Because one step ahead of you, they still have all the learnings a little bit fresh in their mind, and they understand, what kind of advices probably, like, their advices will be a little bit more suitable.
And now my next question is kind of ironic then because of what you've said. Because my next question to you is, now that you've seen things from the founder side, now you're a bit removed from that. You have probably even a bit of survivor bias, I'm sure. Looking at it's now from an investment perspective, what advice or what things maybe would you say that founders should be keeping in mind? Maybe early stage specifically.
100% do not approach any VC until you really do properly your homework. You are wasting all your time. Actually, you might waste 2 years on fundraising, and this is what happens to the majority of the founders. And the majority, and I have been there on the founder side, and now I see it. The majority of the founders, they might waste 2 years trying to fundraise, at least the CEO and stuff, without even understanding, what is the homework they need to do. Like, do your homework, know exactly everything you should be, like all the questions you should answer before approaching any VC. Prepare your pitch deck properly, prepare your data room, prepare all the answers to the questions that they might actually ask you.
How do you know what questions they're going to ask you? How can someone become aware of it?
You really know these things. Like, it's basically all the questions that you are, like, that make you a little bit still doubting if your business will work or not, I mean, they're just basic questions like, okay, I'm selling to certain customers. How many of these customers are? How much are they really willing to pay? And if you avoid answering these questions yourself, you will waste, like, okay, you approach a VC and then, or any investor, and then, like, after 3 months, 2 months, whatever, of ping pong and emails, you have the first call, second call, this question will come, and maybe this question will be, if you don't have an answer for that, a convincing answer, then it's like, okay, next, let's talk in 6 months from now. Then you try to figure out an answer to that. Then there is another question that has come. The best founders really, they're like, okay, I'm not talking to any investor right now. I'm gonna go and do my homework. Go interview, I don't know, hundreds of customers. Do these interviews, have your questions answered. Just I would say, if you're like 2-3 founders, sit in one room and brainstorm all the possible, like, list all the hypotheses, go test them, list all the questions that even you should ask yourself, not an investor should ask you. And once you are really prepared and you have the most beautiful, let's say, answers backed with data and research. Of course, you might not be able to answer everything, but you always have a plan for things. And then you're like, okay, this we know, this we don't know, this we will know this way. It's a lot easier and a lot faster.
That makes sense. Why do you think founders are rushing so much to speak to investors? Because, I mean, I oftentimes hear this from a lot of people that they've been trying to fundraise for a year, 2 years, and
they don't know how to say no. So what happens is, like, usually they are working on an idea, they meet an investor in some event. That investor is like, oh, that's super exciting. But of course, like any investor will always, like, if it's an interesting idea, it's like, awesome. Then they start talking. They don't have a process, and they're not organized in terms of when and how they should kind of communicate with investors and which investors they should really talk to. So they just start talking to the first one who kinds of who knocks the door, and then is like, tell me a little bit more about it. And then the first one will be already, okay, do you have a pitch deck? Then they're like rushing into building a pitch deck and whatever. And then they're like, okay. And then he will ask, okay, do you have something around market sizing? Then they just rush into doing the market sizing. And then after wasting probably 3 months with that investor, is like, okay, no. But then another one asked for something else, and then they just keep,
and it's constantly like doing homework assignments for
and
them,
then another one will be like, okay, but I need a product demo. They're like, okay, we could maybe build something small, but they're not following any kind of like process or strategy. But you have to sit, have a process, say, I'm not talking to anyone. Any investor who approaches me, I'm gonna add them to whatever, like a list, newsletter if you have one, but you tell them, I don't want to talk to you right now. I have a process. And then even, when you want to start fundraising, a lot of also startups, they just literally talk to anyone with the title investor, and they don't know, like, okay, for a business angel or a VC, first, what do they invest on? And then second, do they really invest or not? Do they have money or not? And you need to understand also a little bit more behind the money. Even if there is money, like, okay, did they invest in my area before? How much did they invest? How much money do they allocate to my area if they are like a generalist? And
so really doing the homework.
You need to do your homework. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they're like so much into their vision, and they focus more on basically their vision, and they don't sit and do this boring homework of really, let me list all the VCs, let me do this is exactly what I need to do before I talk to any one of them.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, what I've seen, this is very much also an issue it's obviously a problem for first-time founders, because they're inundated with a ton of things on their mind of what they need to be doing. And I oftentimes have noticed that the archetype of a founder is not necessarily an organized person. I feel like most of the time when I meet founders, these visionaries and everything, they're excited, they're here, they're there. Usually they need a co-founder who's probably a little bit more brought them back down to earth. And also the other thing that I have started noticing with all of the founders that I've interacted with is there's oftentimes a power dynamic in their mind of the investor is up here and they are somewhat below. That's mentally how they see it. So when an investor does come to them and says, hey, I'm interested in you, they feel like, oh, I have to take it. I have to go talk to them. But in actuality, it's a little bit more level than the founder's thinking, because investors need something to invest in that's promising, that's going to get them to whatever that exit amount that they need in the future. And you as a founder actually also have options too. You don't have to pick just any of the founders. So it's interesting that you say that, because I agree. And one of the things with one of the startups that I'm working with, I said to them, before we even start talking to investors, one, go to office hours and just like talk to them, just to get the list of questions in mind, so we can already start understanding what kind of questions they're getting, so that we can do a bit of homework. But when we're actually finally ready to fundraise, have an A list, a B list, and a C list of investors you want. And we'll practice with the C list, because we know we've done our homework on them. We probably don't really want the money from them, but they probably have some good questions that we're going to need to answer. And once we feel comfortable and we feel like we've prepared and done our homework, then we can start going to our A list of investors and really start hitting on. Then we're able to come to them with a data room, with a deck that has everything that they're looking for, all of the questions answered. So I do think it's this preparation, but it's easy for me to give them that advice because I'm detached from the company, right? And I see it from the outside versus I can imagine as a founder, you're like, we just have to get the money. We need the runway. We need to be doing this, you know?
We did also this ABC list. I like this framework. You need to really understand that list. It's not about, because a lot of founders do also rush into building that list, and they might do it like
haphazardly.
Like super fast, just to fill it. You really need to it takes a lot of time. If you don't have any founding experience, if you don't know the investors kind of world, you need to spend a little bit more time. You really go through, read a little bit, follow them. A lot of VCs actually do have newsletters and stuff, so just really follow, just to understand, do they talk the numbers language, do they talk, I don't know, like impact language, like, so that you really know how to talk to them. You should have them like on top of your mind, okay, this VC is this one is this one talks like this, just subscribe to their newsletter, follow their pages, and keep reading their posts for some time. Again, before you start executing that strategy, is really you make sure that you have answered the questions that you can answer, you have done some homework, and then the questions that you cannot answer, you know them and you list them, and you're like, I have no clue, but this is probably the plan how to answer them in the future. Like, doing that homework is, I've seen so many startups, like literally, they just really don't do the homework properly,
There you have it, folks. Be careful with drastic pivots. be selective with who you take advice from, and do your homework before reaching out to VCs. Thank you so much, Zach, for taking the time to join me on this episode by sharing your incredible story and valuable insights. Also, huge thank you to all of you that have tuned in for this episode. Make sure you follow On the Up and Up on your favorite streaming channels and social media platforms to always be informed when a new episode goes live. Also, we have a lot of great things in the pipeline, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. As always, I'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Until then, onwards and upwards, y'all, and I'll speak to you soon.